Hi guys, movie recapped Queen here. Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today I'm going to show you a 2021 horror thriller film named Like Dogs. The movie starts with a young girl named Lisa trekking on a lonely road where she is abducted and put into a van by masked men in his dose to sleep. The next scene shows Lisa tied down by her abductors, while she keeps calling for help and keeps yelling to leave her alone. She is later put into a room, and also chained, although she looks for a way to escape but to no avail. In the next scene, Lisa approaches some of her abductors and asks to go to the bathroom, but they rudely reprimand her, and then she is left with food that looks like dog food which she refuses to eat. Later on, her abductors bring her this same food again, but now they put it out of her reach. She complains of not being able to reach it, but her abductor does nothing other than write something down. While her abductor leaves, she struggles to take the food, and is later able to take it and eat it. While eating, she hears someone crying for help, and she later passes out after eating. The next scene shows her being woken up by one of her abductors. Meanwhile, all of her behaviors are being monitored, and are being compiled. The next scene shows Lisa being taken outside by one of her abductors and left alone with only a speaker with a voice that says "Be good and walk only." She starts running, but she is choked by the collar on her neck, but she continues running so as to escape, but she is choked and then gets electrocuted by the gate and she passes out. Meanwhile, all her behaviors are still being monitored and compiled. In the next scene, Lisa wakes up to hear someone talking to her. They keep communicating without seeing each other. During the course of this discussion, Lisa gets to know that their food has been drugged and there are other places like their cells too. The voice talking to her is of a young man named Adam. Lisa asks to see Adam so as to be sure he's real. And they later see each other. And then food is given to them by their abductors, although Adam urges Lisa not to eat it as the food makes them hallucinate. Lisa doesn't take his advice as she feels eating should make them stronger. Lisa and Adam continue to discuss, but a voice interrupts them through the speaker and orders that they must eat. Adam refuses to eat and he is to be punished. Lisa tries to defend him, but she is electrocuted. During all this, their actions are still being watched and compiled. Later on, when Lisa wakes up, she finds herself isolated from Adam and she is choked to sleep again. In the next scene, she wakes up to hear Adam's voice and Adam thanks her for trying to defend him. They continue to talk and reassure each other that they'd be fine. Lisa asks about Adam's family, and Adam tells her about his family. Lisa also speaks about her family. While talking, they are brought food, but this time Adam eats it. While they both eat, the food makes them hallucinate, and in their hallucination they are a couple who make out. Later on, Lisa woke up to talk to Adam, and they continue to talk. Adam asks Lisa to check if his pupils are dilating, and Lisa moves out to check, and it turns out that their cells have been moved beside each other. Adam decides that it is a good plan as this would make it easier to plan their escape. While talking, they are interrupted by the guard and Adam retreats into his cell and urges Lisa to sleep. Lisa refuses to and she is choked to sleep. The next scene shows Adam being brought food, but he pulls the abductor who brought the food closer and knocks him out. This wakes Lisa up and Adam tells her he's trying to escape, and he also releases Lisa, but as they turn to go, Lisa knocks Adam out and calls for the guards. Later on, Lisa is seen with some of the abductors communicating, and it turns out Lisa is one of the masterminds behind the kidnapping, which is to carry out a behavioral experiment. They are carrying out a behavioral experiment using humans. And a female abductor named Erica advises Lisa to stop it all before anyone gets hurt. By their discussion, it turns out that all the humans used in the experiment are going to get paid. While they are talking, a woman named Fisher calls to demand why the camera isn't working, as Lisa's associate deactivated the camera when Adam tried to escape. Later on, Lisa decides that she'll go back to her cell, and later on Lisa is being escorted to her cell and she tells them to give her some days to subdue Adam as he's the one she wants. In the next scene, Lisa is escorted to her cell and she is made to know that the food given to her and Adam in confinement is just like dog food. After that, Adam is brought to the cell beside Lisa's cell, and the process continues. Lisa wakes Adam up, and he asks Lisa what happened before he passed out, as he knew he was about to escape, but Lisa tells him that he is hallucinating. Later in the morning, Lisa and Adam are put outside and told to walk only, and they continue talking as they walk. Adam and Lisa hop over the fence and they make a run to escape, but before they go far the collar on their neck starts to tighten and they pass out again. The next scene shows Adam being tied down and being injected with an unknown substance which makes him hallucinate. Later on, Lisa is also tied down and injected and she starts to hallucinate and see herself and Adam make out. The next scene shows the two of the abductors talking, one man named George and a lady named Erica. George tells Erica that he went out to deal with Lisa and Adam as they both tried to escape earlier. Later on, the female abductor goes to look around for George, and she calls some of the other abductors to walk her while they search around for George. They find Lisa and Adam tied down and heavily sedated. In the next scene, George is seen coming from lunch to see Lisa and Adam, whom he tied down in their cage via camera. Fisher comes in and demands to know what is going on, and George tries to explain, but Fisher isn't having any of that and she says the experiment is done as she can't afford anyone to be hurt. Lisa is taken from confinement to Fisher. Fisher gives Lisa an injection and starts to ask Lisa questions about the experiment. She asks for the documents on Adam, but it turns out Adam isn't a willing participant in the project. Professor Fisher tells Lisa she is going to report this to the authority, but before she could complete her statement, Lisa chokes her with her hands. She gives Professor Fisher an adrenaline injection, and then locks her in a basement. Later on, Lisa comes to tell George and Erica that she's ready to go back in and lies to them that Fisher has left them and she wants to complete the experiment with Adam. Lisa is put back in her cell as Adam sleeps. Erica still doesn't feel right with everything, but George convinces her to keep herself cool for some days. The next scene shows Lisa and Adam talking, and Lisa tries to comfort Adam. Later on, George goes to find Fisher and finds out that Lisa is lying to them about Fisher, and he later eliminates Fisher. The next scene shows Lisa and Adam talking about their previous love lives till night. Later on, Erica is walking around, and she finds the dead body of Professor Fisher, and she screams, and Lisa hears her scream. Lisa realizes what had happened, and she immediately releases herself and Adam with the keys she has, which astonishes Adam. Later on, George and Erica are seen talking, and George tries to convince Erica that it is Lisa that eliminated Fisher, but she doesn't believe it, so George knocks her out with a sedative. After that, we see Adam and Lisa trying to escape, but George tightens the collar on their neck and chokes them to the unconscious. The next scene shows Erica and Adam tied together, and Erica tries to talk Adam into believing her that she didn't know where Lisa is kept, but Adam doesn't believe her as he feels she's one of his abductors. Erica explains to Adam how the whole thing is an experiment funded by a university, to treat humans as animals, and explains to him how Lisa dragged Adam into the experiment, because she had a crush on Adam. The next scene shows Lisa, who's been watching Adam and Erica through a television, although she is locked down too. George comes in and Lisa pleads with him to let her fix the situation. George agrees and then he takes her to some section of the cell and shows her the people who they are experimenting on. It turns out these experiments are on Lisa's ex-boyfriends and people who had ever wronged her. George tells Lisa that Adam is not the right one for her, but he is because he knows her deeply. He continues to propose to Lisa, and he goes ahead to show Lisa the body of Professor Fisher, whom he eliminated. Everything George had been doing is for Lisa to love him. Later on, George walks into the room where Adam and Erica are, and he brings Lisa with him. He gives Lisa a choice to either eliminate Erica or Adam. Lisa chooses Erica, but George starts to tighten the collar on Adam's neck, and Lisa asks George to make it stop, but he refuses. Lisa offers herself to George just to make him stop the collar tightening on Adam, and George stops it and makes it tighten on Erica instead. Later on, George lets go of Erica and tighten the collar on Adam, because it seems Lisa doesn't still care about him but only cares about Adam. George makes her know that he has made out with her when he dosed her. Lisa proposes a real relationship with George, and George believes she is toying with his emotions and leaves her. George comes back and gives her a phone and tells her to push a button that would eliminate all her ex-boyfriends, but Lisa opts to eliminate herself instead. George doesn't like this and tries to save Lisa. In the midst of this, Lisa bites George's lips and frees herself. She punches George and then frees Erica. After this, George pursues them and catches Lisa, but Lisa hits him and continues to run. Meanwhile, Erica knocks him out. Later on, George wakes up to see Erica and Lisa who chained him and finally eliminate him, In the last scene, Lisa hits Erica and eliminates her too. Thanks for watching.